Welcome to Cake Bites, where we go rapid fire with this week's rule breaker. Fast questions, real answers, zero corporate polish. I'm your host, Elizabeth Bieniek. Let's dig in. All right, we have Roland Smart here for Cake Bites. You ready to dive in, Roland?
I'm ready to take some bites.
All right, let's do it. When you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Pretty early on, I wanted to be an artist. I talked in our last bit of this conversation about creativity, how important that is to me. I started from a place of really being a creative kid and wanting to pursue that. And yeah, then I got more interested in business later in my career.
Yeah. What is one common myth you would like to debunk, or one thing you wish everybody understood about your line of work?
Oh my gosh. With the mental health space, there are so many. I just have to say, if you are a consumer trying to invest in your own mental health, it is a really, really challenging space because there is so much information out there. There's so much conflicting information out there. It's just a really, really hard space to navigate. And also, by the way, most people who are trying to navigate that decision and be smart, educated consumers, they're doing it at a moment where they're probably struggling with something, that's a vulnerability factor for them, which makes it really hard to be a great consumer. Yeah. So what happens when people who are selling a product have much more information than the people who are buying a product? When you don't have a well-educated consumer, typically the people who are selling the product take advantage of the people who don't know much about the product. Most of us don't have psychology degrees. So I think that something I'd like to just debunk is that just because somebody is a psychologist does not necessarily mean that you should trust everything that they say to navigate this mental health space. Yeah, look, I'm not trying to throw psychology. My wife is a psychologist, a psychology profession is a really important one. And it doesn't relieve you of the need to be a really educated consumer. So if you're trying to navigate this space, you need to do all the things that you would do as a consumer of any product. You need to educate yourself and there's such amazing tools now with LLMs and so on, where you can really educate yourself about what you're buying and what you're investing in before you make a decision to do it. And so I would just encourage you, really be the best, strongest advocate for yourself. And if you cannot be that for yourself, enlist somebody, a friend, a partner, a family member, to be there and go on that journey with you and advocate for you.
Well said. I like that one. What's one thing about what you do that most people would find hard, annoying, or unpleasant, but you find strangely satisfying?
So I'm a pretty structured person in terms of the way I do my work, which may seem like it's not necessarily compatible with being a highly creative person, but I do have both of those parts of my personality. And so I do actually get a lot of satisfaction from just completing processes and checking things off my list. So sometimes I find it actually pretty rewarding to do kind of, I'll say semi-menial kind of work, but that it needs to get done and I can do it. And I love the satisfaction of getting it done. So I think, not everybody sees or appreciates the satisfaction that I get from it, but I'm getting something done for the company, and I'm getting some, I
can see the value in that. Fair enough. What's one completely unrelated thing that you do outside of work that you think makes you better at your job?
So I mentioned that I'm a pretty curious person, and I really just like learning new things. Not to make everything AI centric here, but I just want to get back to one of the things that I think personally has been really enriching for me about AI and having AI in my life is that it makes I can take a car ride and start that car ride with a conversation being hey, LLM, I want to learn about a topic that I don't really know anything about. And we can have a 45-minute conversation about it. And I feel learning about other disciplines and getting into the guts of some topic surprisingly often makes me have a realization about something that's actually relevant to something I'm working on. And so that was not as accessible to me in the past. Like I would have to go to a library or I'd have to be sitting in front of my computer and like have the intention to do it. Whereas now I can put that into a car ride and I love that.
I like that. Okay. I want to talk about career advice, best or worst that you've ever received, or both.
Yeah. I will actually admit to something that I think I didn't discover until pretty late into my career that I didn't appreciate and or discover the like having a mentor in your career. I unfortunately, I think like a lot of people was brought up to believe that I should like be able to figure it out myself. And I definitely could figure out. I figured out a lot of things myself. But I think I could have figured out a lot of those things a lot faster and with a lot less heartache if I had been more open to asking other people. So I don't know. Nobody told me that. Maybe that's more like a piece of advice that I would like to give somebody else. Maybe that would be the best piece of advice that they get is that like, it's all about relationships and it's all about learning from other people. Again, this goes back to why TheraHive, why groups? Why is it all about groups? Because it's all about people and relationships. And like, if you're not really leaning into those, you're doing yourself a disservice.
What is one daily habit you think that's contributed to your success in your field?
I mentioned that I'm a pretty structured person. I am also a person who has a lot of different things going on in parallel. In addition to serving as the CEO of TheraHive, I do advisory work for some other companies that are in very different spaces. And because of that, it's hard to hold it all in my head. And so I I'm really, really disciplined about taking notes on what I'm working on. I use a platform called Asana to track everything that I do. And starting my day with Asana and like organizing, reminding myself of all the things I need to do and where I need to focus my attention is a practice. I've been doing that for a very long time and it's essential. Like I couldn't not do that.
I like that. I can align to that. Organizing the to-do list before you start doing it.
Yeah, totally.
What do you do when you're in a funk or not in the mental space you need to be to tackle the day?
I am a big fan of cross-training, by which I mean like mixing up the things that I am working on. And that can be a very diverse set of things. Like it could be, stepping away from the computer to do a load of laundry, to fold laundry. It could be taking a run in the middle of the day or riding my bike in the middle of the day. It could be getting my son out of school early and playing tennis with him. I would say like a lot of those things I just mentioned are kind of physical things. So I'm a pretty physical person. I like to get outside. And so that is one way. I also do I do feel if I am working on writing something, it's so different than designing something. And so sometimes for me, just switching the part of my brain that I'm using is really, really helpful in kind of shaking things up. I feel like if I'm stuck on something, if I switch gears and I have like a whole fresh set of energy to focus on this other kind of task, and then when I finally come back, I feel like I've recharged in that other area of my brain and I can maybe tackle the problem again with a fresh set of eyes and make progress. So I do that a lot. I know I do want to call it like there's a tax for context switching.
Yes.
It shouldn't be ignored.
Very true.
And I'm not talking about like responding to a Slack message that just comes up or responding to a text message. That's not the kind of switching that I'm talking about. I'm talking about more like actually purposefully stopping what I'm working on, switching to something else that I'm going to focus on for at least a half an hour before trying to come back.
Nice. Do you have a favorite quote or mantra?
I've got a few business quotes that come up a lot in my work. There's this one called, "You don't have to outrun the bear." So this is the thing that I talk about when we're aware of competitive pressures in our marketplace. Just the idea that like, you just have to be better or a little bit faster than the slowest person, because the person behind you is going to get eaten by the bear, right? You just need to stay ahead of that and stay alive and keep moving forward. So I think it's really easy. We talked a minute ago about like what I'm most excited about for 2026. And I said, like, I have so many ideas about how I want to make the student experience for a program so much better. And I think like I could get so fixated on that I take my eyes off like some critical business needs that we need to do to stay alive. Like, yes, of course, I'm going to make the product as awesome as I can, but like I can't beat myself up about that. Like if I need to recognize that like I need to live another day so that I have the opportunity to make the product a little bit better tomorrow, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have a favorite business book?
So not a favorite. I mean, there's so many business books. I love Dan Ariely's book, Predictably Irrational, is one of my favorites. It really interesting psychology book. Another one is Good to Great. If you haven't read that one, another Get the Right People on the Bus, the Wrong People off the bus, and the right people in the right seats. If you're working on a startup, and that's just such critical advice. So definitely recommend that book. So many good ones out there. But yeah,
non-business book. Do you have a favorite non-business book that may or may not apply to business?
Non-business book. Okay, interesting. Well, I'm reading a book right now, which I think is pretty great. I'll focus on that because there's so many great books. I'm a reader. I mean, I got a giant bookshelf of books behind me here. I love reading. I happen to be reading a book right now by John Gottman and his wife. If you haven't heard of John Gottman, he and his wife have collectively revolutionized the field of couples therapy. You should just look him up. He's got a book on working on your relationship. It's actually quite a short book. That's a good book. Like if you're in a relationship, if you're married, like you should just like read that book once a year because it's a great book to keep yourself and your relationship tuned up. And you should look into John Gottman's work. I think this is a person who should probably get a Nobel Peace Prize for the work that he's done. I aspire, like if TheraHive continues to grow and is super successful, one of the things that I would be really excited about doing is creating some online education around John Gottman's work because it's so amazing.
Awesome. All right, I'll check that out. How do you pay wisdom forward?
I mean, I feel like my work at TheraHive in general is about just working on education and helping people improve that. There's actually a skill in DBT called Wise Mind that I should mention right now. So Wise Mind is a DBT skill that it sets up this idea that we have emotion mind and we have a reason mind. And, emotion mind is this sort of hotter state that, is where a lot of our impulses come from, really strong emotions come from, a lot of our motivation comes from. And reason mind is, this very rational part of our mind where we think logically. It's a cooler state of mind. And the skill in DBT, using this framework to provide people with the ability to integrate or synthesize these two different perspectives to help them ensure that they are making balanced, wise mind decisions. So it's a framework for basically articulating what perspectives are being driven by more emotion mind, which are driven by this rational mind, and how do I integrate them together to ensure that I'm making a wise decision that's actually well aligned with my goals and values over the long term. So teaching that skill, I think, is just a way of promoting some wisdom in the world.
Okay. All right. And our last question has to be about cake. So what is your favorite kind of cake?
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I just want to say I love cupcakes in particular. In my book, The Agile Marketer, I talk about cupcakes because cupcakes are kind of like, this is actually an analogy that was given to me. I used to work at this company called Adaptive Path. There was a guy named Brandon Chower who introduced me to this metaphor, so I should call him out. And I've held on to this throughout my career. So when we make cupcakes, that's like a prototype or an MVP of a product. And the thing that makes it a good MVP is it has all the things. So just making a small piece of cake wouldn't be a good prototype for like an actual cake because just the cake, it doesn't have the filling. It doesn't have the icing on the top. What's great about a cupcake is it has all the things. And it's like representative of actually what the bigger thing could be, like the wedding cake. And so I love this idea of how can we think about when we're building products and bringing them to market, like this is the agile mindset, right? How can I do like a really low cost, low risk thing that will allow me to test whether that the big thing would be successful. And then I can take another step forward in that direction. So I love cupcakes. And I would say that I'm kind of a fan of I also like fruit fillings and things like that. So I kind of really like the vanilla raspberry or strawberry mix kind of cake. So if you've ever had a cupcake that has that kind of fruit vibe to it with
You and my son would get along really well. That's
I
his
love it.
jam.
Great.
Fantastic. All right, Cake Bites with Roland Smart, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us, Roland.
Okay, my pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for joining another Cake on Tuesday celebration of beautiful disruption. Please share it, review it, and find more innovative stories at podcast.cakeontuesday.com. I'm Elizabeth Bienik. Be bold, stay curious. Now go have some cake.